Good morning, students. Today I am doing the chapter. Good morning, students. Today I will discuss the animal tissue. Now, the animal tissue is basically divided into four categories: epithelial tissue, connective tissue, muscle tissue, and nervous tissue. In my previous day class, I have discussed the epithelial tissue and the connective tissue with their all of the characteristics and classifications. So today I will move to muscle tissue, which is little bit easy to remember and it is not having so much of classifications in them. And lastly, I will discuss about the nervous tissue. So let us directly jump into that. Now this muscle tissue, I have done a classification over here, is basically divided into three main subcategories. They are skeletal muscle, smooth muscle, and cardiac muscle. All these names are basically given depending on their appearance and also where we can find them. So first I will talk about the skeletal muscle. First I will talk about the skeletal muscle. Now this skeletal muscle is basically present, it is basically present along with the bones, the skeleton that we have. As this muscle is associated to the skeleton, so it is known as skeletal muscle. Now if you look at the structure of the muscle, this is the structure of the muscle, you can see some dark and some light bands. These bands are dark and these bands are light. It looks like it is made up of this kind of dark color bands and light color bands. Dark color bands and light color bands. These bands are nothing but muscle fibers. Muscle fibers or muscle proteins, namely actin and myosin. Actin and myosin. This detailed structure of these proteins are there in class 11. Just remember, these muscles look like that they are having this dark color and light color band alternatively. This arrangement is called striations. This arrangement of dark color and light color bands are called striations. That's why this muscle is also known as striated muscle. This muscle, the skeletal muscle, is also known as striated muscle. Next, what is the structure? Basically, the muscle is surrounded by a membrane called sarcolemma. The muscle is surrounded by a membrane called sarcolemma and multiple nuclei are present between them. Multiple nuclei are present between them. In a cell which bears multiple nuclei are called syncytium. I am writing in the book, you can write with your pencil also in your copy. Now inside the muscle body you can see dark and light color bands, so it is known as the striated muscle. Where you can find them? It is basically present with the skeleton system of our body and nearly 50% of the entire body weight is dependent on this skeletal muscle. Okay students, so next I will talk about the smooth muscles. Why the name is so? Because the smooth muscle looks like this. It is having single fiber like structures. There is no dark or light color bands present in them and they bear a simple single nucleus. As they looks very smooth or simple, that's why the name is smooth muscle or unstriated muscle, or they are also called the involuntary muscle. One more thing students, the skeletal muscle are also known as the voluntary muscle because we can control their movement according to our wish. But the smooth muscle is basically known as the involuntary muscle. Now why this is so? If you look at their location, they are found basically the walls of the hollow and tubular organs such as our digestive system, that is the alimentary canal, our urinary bladder, blood vessels, all the glands present in our body. Everywhere these smooth muscles are present. Now you know you cannot control their activity according to your wish. Your alimentary canal, urinary bladder to some extent you can control, but alimentary canal or gland secretion you cannot control. That's why these muscles, the smooth muscles, are also called the involuntary muscle. Now I will move to the last one, that is the cardiac muscle. Now look at the structure of cardiac muscle. Structurally they basically looks like a skeletal muscle, but functionally they are like the smooth muscle. That's why they are categorized into a different group called the cardiac muscle, and we can only found them in heart. Okay, cardiac word is associated with the organ heart. Okay, look, these are made up of branching structure of muscle fiber. These are made up of branching structure of muscle fiber, anastomosing structure also known as. They are also made up of dark and light color bands, and bears multiple nucleus in a muscle cell, just like the skeletal muscle. But the activity of your heart, that is the activity of cardiac muscle, you cannot control. So by function it is just like the smooth muscle. Okay, the cardiac muscle has a special power. It can generate its own beat. That is the continuous contraction and relaxation of the heart, which is also known as pacemaker. Okay, the fibers are basically uninucleate. In a single fiber there is a single nucleus, but as a whole, as this is a total structure, there are multiple nucleus. Now they are joined together. This joining is known as intercalated disc. These joining portions of the cardiac muscles are called intercalated disc. So students, the difference between the striated, unstriated and cardiac muscle is also very important. It is better if you write them depending on this kind of points. So our muscle tissue is over. Now I will move to the nervous tissue. The nervous tissue is basically divided into two groups. That is neuroglia, that is a supportive nervous tissue, and the working nervous tissue is the neuron. Over here we will talk about neuron. Maybe from class 5 or 6 you were studying about this neuron. Neuron is made up of a cell body or cyton or perikaryon, and made up of several branches, or rather extensions. These extensions can be of two types. Okay, that is, small extensions are called the dendrons, their branchings are called the dendrites, and the long extension is called the axon. Okay, now in the axon you can see it is covered by this kind of a structure which is known as myelin sheath. These structures which is covering the axon is called the myelin sheath, and the gap between myelin sheath is known as node of Ranvier. The gap between myelin sheath is known as node of Ranvier. You can be asked, what is the function of this myelin sheath? As you know, in case of electric wires, we give a coating of plastic or fiber to make it to give a insulation. Insulation means that is not able, that basically stops the flow of electric through them. So this nerve tissue, that is the neuron, basically helps in nerve impulse transmission. Now nerve impulse is conducted from one node of Ranvier to another node of Ranvier. Basically they move by saltatory or jumping conduction that makes the movement of nerve impulse very fast. Okay, dendrite helps to receive the nerve impulse from the previous neuron, whereas the axon basically transmits the nerve impulse from one neuron to another one. The branching of the axons are having some swollen structures. They are called the axon endings or end bulbs. Axon endings or end bulbs. So the myelin sheath basically works as insulator, so the nerve impulse move through the node of Ranvier. What is node of Ranvier, students? The gap between two myelin sheath. So the nerve impulse basically jump from one node of Ranvier to another, and they reach very fast to the other neuron. Okay, so this is the basic structure of this nervous tissue. Okay, hopefully you have go through the chapter very well.